It's a first on episode 87 of the 1004 show. It's a couple. Yep, a married couple. Brittany and David Peregoff, the owners of Where2Wheel. And it's pretty interesting because we talk about how they basically are together 24/7, still seem to love each other, still seem to have growing businesses, which is lovely because so many of us could only handle so much with our spouse on a day-to-day basis, yet they do it basically 24/7. And how did they do all this? Well, they turned a wedding gift into a business website. We talk about all this and more on episode 87 of the 1004 show. Let's call it a Jeep edition. I own a Jeep, they own a Jeep, and we talk about Jeeps. Where2Wheel, episode 87 of the 1004 show. Vroom, vroom. Let's go. What's the greatest commercial or the greatest movie which showcases a Jeep?
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park's a good one. Oh, that is an excellent question. I've never been asked that before.
If you notice, during the Super Bowl, they brought the Jurassic Park in for the new JL.
Yeah.
I'd probably say Jurassic Park.
Did you see the commercial, the Jeep commercial last night with the red Jeep crossing the stream and then going up a rock waterfall?
Oh, that one was good.
I don't know.
It was like when they were introducing their new Wrangler. That was the first Jeep commercial, I think.
But that one, so the Jeep was moving slowly across the stream, and then before it could climb the ledge, he had to actually come to a stop and go up the ledge slowly, which is kind of important for us because when we were talking about pitching to economic development, we want to highlight the fact of just how slow the Jeeps are going on the off-road course and that it's not off-road racing. So that one, I was like, this is the perfect commercial and the perfect timing, 4 days before we're about to pitch.
And it shows like what it really looks like when you're off-roading, not what people think it looks like.
So you guys think that there's like this common thought that off-roading looks one way, but it's actually a completely different way?
Oh yeah, everyone thinks of the big V8 engines like the Monster Jam trucks and racing around and super loud, and that's off-roading, but not what we're talking about when we actually talk about the sport.
Right, yeah, that's not what most people are doing. When you go out to off-road park, you aren't going to be jumping your truck and
over cars and buses.
So what inspired you guys to start Where2Wheel?
I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, so I was always into off-roading in high school, and then I went off to college, and I ditched my H3 at the time for a Mustang GT, and then I actually wrecked the Mustang. So then I was in a four-door sedan after that, and after graduating college and coming back to Virginia Beach, I decided I wanted to get back into off-roading. So I started looking online of actually where I would go off-roading if I did own an off-road vehicle, because that's probably something you should look at. And I was realizing that there wasn't any updated information online. There was forum posts from 4 or 5 years ago, and it was really just scarce. So, that's where I saw this hole in the market of information.
Mm-hmm. There's no centralized area.
And what was your skill set at that point?
Oh, nothing related to
We've been running
tech.
the vending business, for about 3 years, but nothing web-based. So it was a whole nother realm. And of course, vending, you have to be in front of the machine every day. And so we thought we'll build this website and it'll just make all this reoccurring revenue and we'll just hang out. And it's not anything what it's like.
I was also reading the 4-Hour Work Week at the same time that we were building Where2Wheel. So I was like, this is going to be so simple. We'll put up a website and it'll just make millions of dollars.
I believe
4
that.
hours a week.
I believe that book can be summed up in do things in bulk, right? That's the 4-Hour Work Week.
Yeah.
All you have to do is do things in bulk and everything will be fine. And I appreciate that, but I have never met someone who only works 4 hours a week. Have you?
No.
All right. So how do you start learning this
Nobody
skill
that's successful.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you have this. So you have this idea. You want to. Is an H3 a Hummer 3? What's an H3, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all right.
So you have this idea that, and then you do some searching, and it sounds like this thing doesn't exist. How do you start learning the skills to be able to produce something like this?
So we knew we weren't interested in learning coding or trying to become web developers ourselves, so we wanted to outsource it. And we knew we had the management skills to stay on top of managing the project that was being created rather than create it ourselves.
I actually got, I got him. You can find him at Office Max, the big like sticky note pads. And because he comes up with a lot of ideas, and I was like, well, if you're serious, then you need to lay out what you want the website to look like. And so I've gone somewhere, I think it was his mom, and I came back, and I mean, there's like sticky note things everywhere. I mean, every page, like this links to this and this links to this. So then I was like, oh my gosh, you're like really serious. So I Googled web developers in the area, and we had actually just gotten married a couple months before, and we got a gift, a cash gift from my grandfather. So I was like, this is our budget right here. This is what we have. So I kind of knew what we were working with, and we needed so much left over for marketing. And I called around, like we called Grow, which was a mistake. You know, what was the other one?
Why?
Way Creative Labs.
Way too expensive, or?
Way expensive. Well, and they were really good. They were like, we don't do projects like that, but they actually referred us to ID Web with Kevin Daisy, and he was just kind of getting off the ground at the time. And I told him, this is our budget, you know, this is what we're thinking. And so we met with him, we brought our big sticky note pad in, and he was like, yeah, I can do it for that. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And then along the way, you just learn, you know, pieces that you need to learn when it has to happen. And before you know it, you know more about a website than you ever thought you would.
What type of...
We still don't know how to code.
You know, what type of budget are we talking about? A couple $1,000s, hundreds of thousands of dollars?
At the time... Well, at the time we spent 10 grand on the original one. Mm-hmm. And that was with some custom coding for adding in trails and pulling people's information. Because we needed pieces like tire size, like stuff like that wasn't really out there.
I believe
and a logo.
The original budget was $16,000 that we started with.
Yeah. And so we mistakenly put an ad in the biggest off-roading magazine, which they gave us a good deal, but we got like 3 signups, and it was like $2,000. So that was...
Right. Yeah, I would never return to print ad.
No.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so print ad. We're going to talk about print ad and then the website. So I've always found that when I spend the most amount of money, I get the least amount of results.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So... I'm writing a book.
Yeah, it was definitely that.
I'm writing this book called Anomaly, How to Finally Stand Out from the Crowd. And the whole idea is that basically everything in it is based on things that are less than the price of the book. So for $25 or so, well, because all these people say, oh, I can just do this thing and it'll be glorious. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. And so you watch the Super Bowl and people are spending $5 million on an ad. You're like, gosh, I hope you get some sort of return. Like there was someone that said, watch the full movie here. And I'm like, man, I hope they go to that website and watch it, because it just, I don't know, it just seems like a lot of money. Who knows what kind of results they get. And I just worry about businesses spending that kind of money. Avocados, where are they getting $5 million to do that? I mean, geez, I guess that's why they cost $4 an avocado. Like it's just ridiculous.
Right.
So the print ad you put in a magazine. Have you guys ever done a big kind of purchase like that again?
No. Well, they told us it was for 3 months, and they were like, you really see returns after the 3rd month. So we were like, at the time, we didn't have another option. I mean, we were putting flyers and stickers on people's car around town when we saw them, and networking with like the local Jeep clubs, but we didn't really have another option. So we did the 2nd round, but then Kevin Daisy actually was like, Facebook just came out with this like Facebook ad thing. You guys should probably do that. We switched, and to this day, we get like 95% of our customers through Facebook.
Right. And we were running the vending business before starting Where2Wheel, so we had no idea how to really market a business. So
like on online where you can't like see it, like it's not physical, you can't walk by and see the machine or the storefront. So that was a steep learning curve there. And I tell everyone it's way harder to market a website, you know, a digital entity than it is a physical, because you can't see it. So it's it's difficult.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
learned, but it was a steep learning curve there for us.
Are you guys familiar with the Bandit ads from 1 Hour Heating and Cooling? You'll see them now
The
that
Bandit,
you.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh,
So
uh,
we interviewed their
yeah.
founder a few months ago, and their agency that pitched their ad to do Bandit was in Austin, and they were like, "It's gonna take a year," but it's all about frequency.
Yeah.
And that's probably why that other business was like, hey, this is going to take 3 months, or the results you'll start getting after 3 months. I mean, when you start doing ad campaigns, you can't put it on for a couple of minutes and hope that it works. Like, it really does take a long time. So let's talk about what that website looked like day one. Like, what were the main features that you thought that needed to be there? And, like, what percentage of those actually were never really used or utilized by the members?
Need a Recovery wasn't.
Yeah, so we have a feature called Need a Recovery feature, which is if you're off-roading alone and you get stuck, you can get on Where2Wheel and post basically this distress beacon that goes out to all the other members, letting them know that you need to, you're stuck on a trail and you need help.
Help me.
And that,
So it's like the.
We thought that was going to be big.
It sounds, it's not like these ideas aren't good usually. It's just that for some reason, no one is thinking to utilize them that way. It's like what is the thing where the old lady falls and I fall and I can't get up? I mean, it's that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Life alert.
Yeah, and it didn't integrate as smoothly as we wanted. We're going to do a rebuild of that
Yeah, we
soon,
still,
so it actually populates the
I
map.
still believe it could be a heavily utilized feature that adds value to the website. But in version 1, it was poorly executed and it was not user intuitive. So it just
we
it
kind of
didn't
just
come together on
assumed
version 1.
people would kind of figure it out, like Need a Recovery. That's pretty self-explanatory, but we found like even when stuff is self-explanatory, you have to make it as simple as possible. I mean, I have people like, it says trails at the top of our website. I'm like, how do I get to the trails? I'm like, so you have to make it like even more simple than you think it is. So it wasn't intuitive.
Yeah.
So
online websites, they're hard. I know with one of our sites, 1004.com, we have put how to search 3 or 4 different ways because some people want to search one way, some people want to look at it this way, and so it's just you're constantly changing. And depending on the features, we also outsource that stuff. So features cost thousands of dollars typically. And so every time you're like, how important is this? Because it doesn't seem like it's that important to me. But if this is going to take that thing to the next level, maybe we need to do it. So we talked about print ad that didn't work, but you had to spend a couple $1,000s on what the website looked at the beginning. We're going to get into the fact that you both are married in a little bit, which I think is interesting that you own a couple businesses together and are married and sit next to each other at home frequently. I think that's interesting. But how do you start marketing an online business? Because like you said, you can't walk by it. You can't put a "We're open" sign in front of the brick and mortar place. So what are the first things someone could start to do to market an online business?
So I pretty much do most of the marketing. We got David's Jeep is wrapped, so when he's driving around town, it has it on it. We put out stickers and flyers in the area for the people we can, but we're more of a national brand, so we had to accomplish that, and we've done really well. I would suggest anyone who is a website owner and is starting, I would suggest Facebook or like LinkedIn, depending on what your sector is. It is, you can spend $5 on an ad on Facebook and kind of test your market out. That's what we did in the beginning. We were pretty sure most of the market was Jeep. So what we started out with was 4 different ads. And one was a truck, one was a Jeep, one was rock crawling, and one was mudding. And so we just basically verified who are the people that are responding to this. And we ran them for a month for like $5 a day. We took them down and we reviewed them, and then we changed the ads to speak more to that audience. So now all of our ads have Jeeps in them. And we've changed them over the years to refresh them. And then along with that, we've built this huge Facebook audience that is engaging with us every day. So we push a lot of things out to them, get feedback. And one of the biggest things is people will leave comments on our Facebook page of issues on the sites or problems. And address every comment. And usually someone who doesn't like it will address it and we turn them into a customer. So really just taking the time and using like social media and connect with your customer online is important. And you would be surprised, a little bit goes a long way. People don't expect anyone to say anything back on websites nowadays. And we always answer, and that's the first thing I get, like, oh, you guys are like real. Thanks for answering my question. I'll sign up now. And I'm like, what do you mean we're real?
I mean, social is a two-way street, right? Hey, someone's doing this thing and they want a response from you. And I go on rants about this. I'm just like, why do you even have a Facebook page? Why do you have any social media page? Why do you have any kind of web presence if you're not going to respond? And people are like, well, I don't have the time to do it. Cool, get off. Like, people are literally doing the action you want them to do. And you are sitting back going, well, I didn't know they responded. I'm like, this is your job. This is your responsibility. Like, you look like a buffoon. Like respond. Because like you said, positive or negative, you're getting feedback. They're doing what you want them to do. And in many cases, your audience or community will respond in place of you because they know the answer as well. And I've seen that on your guys' page as well. So let's dissect those ads. So what did the ads not necessarily look like, but what were you trying to pitch? Join the Facebook page, go to the website. What was your intention with those ads early on?
So the first about year and a half, it was up to a little over 1,900 customers. We gave them the option to access the entire website for either free or paid. They could pick. Because we needed to build basically the trail database. We don't want to charge anyone for an empty map, basically, because you don't want to get them upset at the beginning. This was already a new thing. We were having to change people's behavior. You don't want to upset them from day one. So at that point, it was really just getting the name out, like driving people to the website, like add a trail, join, that was the first round of marketing. And then once we reached where we thought we had enough trails to start charging, we closed the map side for a subscription. And part of this was we were seeing a lot of trail abuse, especially in our local area where there were no trails. And we had the only trail listings for most of Virginia Beach and Norfolk and out to Suffolk. Yeah. And so we kind of came up with the idea of, well, if you're going to pay for it, you'll respect it. And that's what we kept pushing to everybody along the way, like, why do I have to pay for this? And this is why we're doing it. So because trail closures is a big issue in that community. And people responded really well to that. Like, they might not have signed up. People like not respecting the rules. Like, let's say the trail is like right here and you're not supposed to go off over here, and they just go off. So then the trail ends up getting closed, or too much overuse from people not treating it correctly, trash, stuff like that.
It's when people don't stay the trail, and when people also leave trash behind. You're supposed to pack in, pack out, just like camping.
So nothing to do with the
anything
website.
you bring in, you also take out.
No.
Correct. No, it was all about behavior when people got to the trail.
Right.
And you kind of have to. So what we were attempting to do was to weed out the bad apples and not, only give the information to the people that are going to be responsible with the information.
And it wasn't a lot. It was like, at that point, it was $199 a month. So it wasn't like a huge amount of money, but it was still at least some kind of hump
$2
to protect it a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that was the first round. And once we did to subscription base, we were pushing we came up with an ad that showed the map, and it basically was like, it still runs. It's actually our most popular, and it shows, it's like, find off-roading trails in your area. And then we run a Jeep one that says basically like, get your rig off the pavement, which was one of our first slogans. And then we run a third one that is a program we have called Trails for Trail. If you don't want to pay, if you add trails to the map, based on how many trails you add, we'll give you free access for a certain amount of time. And so we were really trying to push that program to build up our trail listings. And so we run that one. And that one is, the copy for that is along the lines of, get access to the nation's largest trail database. As of right now, we're the only ones that have all 50 states with trails.
And then y'all are trailblazers.
Aspect. Yeah.
With running a Facebook ad, I think the most important thing is writing the ad, or not even writing it, but designing the ad in a way where it can be understood what's being sold in less than 5 seconds.
Quickly, yeah.
That's where we just show a picture of the map with the trail pins on it and then our logo over that. And, instantly somebody knows that we're selling a trail database.
Yeah.
That's powerful. If you can't figure it out in 5 seconds, why do it, right? I mean, I think that's your elevator pitch as well. And I mean, I know you guys are, I don't know if it's mentors, organizers, whatever the word is, at 1 million cups, but you've probably seen hundreds of pitches now. I've seen probably thousands of pitches in my life. And the ones that are the best are the ones that don't use the full time.
Right.
I mean, people want to talk for the total amount of time that they have, and they're like, well, I need to talk. I'm like, no, like, you're gonna bore people. Like, figure out how to say it in a couple of words instead of a couple thousand words. And I mean, you guys see these weekly, so I mean, it's powerful to know your messaging, and it's very powerful to know it in a very quick way.
Yeah, it's not difficult to use 1,000 words to describe something. It's difficult to use 10 words to describe something.
Right. And I think that came along too with not only being on social media, so you need to be able to deliver it quickly, but I mean, everyone wants access to trail database, but it was also trying to change their behaviors of you can go here to find them. So that was an aspect where we had to really explain really quickly and easily what this is and break it down to like its base or points and not get all fancy. So that kind of led to that.
On top of the ads, you guys also run just popular content on Facebook. How do you guys decide kind of the marketing behind that to get people engaged?
We also run AdWords. I didn't mention that one. I kind of fell into this. So when we started using Facebook, I was like, well, I guess we'll give this a try. And Dave, most people don't know this, has no social media, so it fell to me.
Yeah, well, it was not happening on my side.
So the first couple posts, I'm like, what am I supposed to say? And I can remember I was like putting this photo up, and it was a Jeep, and Dave's like, that's not a TJ. Like, well, what is this? And so like it was a learning curve for me. I mean, I know all of that now, and it was just trial and error. It was posting things. I knew they were responding to Jeep stuff. So what I did is on my personal Facebook page, I went and looked at all the popular Jeep pages, and then I just liked them. And so if you ever look on like my Facebook feed, it's like constantly off-roading and Jeep stuff. So I just started paying attention to what those people were posting, and I would share it on our page and judge the reactions and how much engagement it got on our side. And then I would, kind of from there figure out what are they responding to. And then it's really trial and error. Like sometimes I'll post something I think they're really going to like it. The other day I posted one from The Office with Michael Scott where he's like, no, God, please no. And it was like the spin was like when you go off-roading and your Jeep starts making a new noise. And I really thought that one would be big, and it kind of wasn't. And then you post ones and it just like goes viral. So it's really just a learning curve. It just took some time. I mean, I know they like Jeep stuff, but I throw truck stuff in because we have members who have trucks and Toyotas and
I always hate it when I think some post is going to do really, really well, and I'm like, it does it, and you're like, why didn't this work? This is so good. And I like that Michael Scott one. That's clever.
Yeah, I thought that was really good, and it's a piece that I've done other ones on that before with different angles, and they've done really well. And I was just like, man. Yeah,
I think the key to it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Britt, is finding content that sparks an emotional response within somebody.
Yes.
And if you can get that emotional response, that's when they're going to share it or comment on it. That's when you're going to get an action beyond them just reading the post.
And something important that I learned early on is I see a lot of people with Facebook pages, and this is sort of why I started helping people with digital marketing, and every post is like pushing their company or their product. And I was like, you're not going to build a Facebook engagement there because they're coming to you for something and then you push your product. So I got really smart, and what I would do is I would post 6 days a week, and I would only post one Where2Wheel push. So I would bring them in and bring them in and bring them in and bring them in and keep them entertained, and then I would push Where2Wheel. And I still do that. Sometimes I do 2 a week. Sometimes I give them a week off depending on how big the thing I pushed the week before was, and that's worked really well for us. So I have constant engagement, and then when I do push whatever aspect I want to push for Where2Wheel, like we just reached over 700 trails, so that was a big one. I get a lot of attention to that because they're already paying attention to my page.
So you're sharing outside information that has nothing to do with Where2Wheel. So like, what does that look like? Is it just you're sharing someone else's post onto your page, a blog post, an image?
So like, so it's all kinds of stuff. I share stuff from other pages that I know they'll like recently when the snowstorm hit, one of the pages, Jeep Freaks, posted show us your snow Jeep pics, and that was doing really well. So I shared it on our page, and it helped get them traffic. Like the Michael Scott one, I always tag Where2Wheel in it, but it was really just a funny one just to kind of, keep them entertained. I do a lot of like people who send us their photos of their Jeeps. Like today is one where a guy sent us his photo for Muddy Monday. Then I post it and I tag them in it. People love that because they love everyone seeing their car. And then, so I tag Where2Wheel and everything, but it's more to keep them entertained. And then, when they are entertained, they keep coming back. So we have like a 98% engagement. Everyone comes back and keeps interacting with our page, which has worked well for us. So then when I do have something, they're already there.
What do you mean you tag Where2Wheel and everything? What does that mean?
So I hashtag Where2Wheel. We have a Where2Wheel and a W2W hashtag. So I put that in every post, no matter what the content is. And then on the ones where I am incorporating Where2Wheel, I always put a link straight to the site.
Got it. So right now you guys have So right now you guys have a kind of a premium model, but you're moving away from that to go to more a freemium model. Walk through why that change is happening.
Yeah.
So trying to think of the best way to say that. One last thing I wanted to say about marketing was that recently I found out that print ads, the pricing of print ads is based on an 8-time circulation.
Mm-hmm.
So they expect that the magazine's going to get passed around between 8 different people before you get your full value out of it.
Yeah, because they think you're at a doctor's office and people are reading it. And that might be true, but no one's reading the entire magazine.
Right. Yeah, that's just something to keep in mind that we didn't know. We actually just found out a couple months ago.
Right.
Someone was talking about it.
Something else about that emotional thing. If you really think about it, marketing is just getting a reaction from someone. And daily you see 6,000 ads, right? You guys are looking at me. There's the egg, there's the belt. So there's, that's 3 or 4 ads there. Maybe I'm showing, maybe my black T-shirt is an ad. Y'all have both your businesses there. The stuff behind you, like there's ads literally everywhere. 6,000 a day is what the average human consumes. And so you have to be this small little thing once to try and get them to even look up. And so you've probably seen a commercial on TV where the sound would go really high or go really low or go silent. Those are all things to get people to look up. And so it's very difficult to think of ways that are creative to get people to look up from whatever you're doing or to consume more of it. And it's I think what you guys have done is tremendous, and I think a lot of things you're doing is just looking at what's working with other people and figuring out how that works. So
yeah, and it's certainly easier when you have an audience that's passionate about what you're selling.
Yeah,
people love Jeeps.
Yeah, they're fanatics.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
so
the big change.
The decision to go from paid to free.
Yeah, really growth and market capturing. Capture the market.
Growth, when you have, it's just nature of the business model. When you're selling a subscription fee for something, your conversion rate is less than 1%. So,
especially online.
Yeah, so growth is just extremely slow. And maybe if I was okay with, a 10-year business plan for trying to get Where2Wheel where I want it to be, then we could stick with the subscription-based model. But I still don't think we'd ever reach critical mass within the market. And at the end of the day, I don't think there's going to be room for more than 1 or 2 trail databases out there. And it's certainly not going to be a paid service, one that's going to be existing as the number one. So it's really the decision to capitalize on the brand awareness that we already have going on and capitalize on the momentum and make ourselves the dominant leader in the space before somebody else comes in and captures
So how do you make
that
money
spot.
then?
And so there are small, well, so everyone who is in a subscription will be moved into Still, and they get access to certain features that everybody else doesn't. And if they want to cancel, they can. That'll be a big change there. But advertising, we have a little over 8,000 members, but we're one of the larger, besides forums, which are crazy expensive for ads. One of the larger groupings of places where people for off-roading besides Facebook are basically congruing.
Yeah.
Not really congruing. Where they come together. Lost the word. So that will help
congregating?
kind of switch over. And luckily, congregating. Thank you. Not congruing. It's a math term. And there's been small websites here and there. They're really, most of them are people's side hobbies, so they get kind of like half done, then they're not finished, or they don't get kept up to date, or they go out of business, whatever. And we're the only one that's been marketing, and so everyone knows our name and our brand. So now's a really good time, we feel, to switch while we're riding the brand awareness aspect as well.
The subscription revenue has been a blessing because it has allowed us to have a marketing budget and a marketing spend for the past,
4 years.
Yeah, 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
But it's gotten to the point where everybody, I won't say everybody, but we feel that most people that are off-roading enthusiasts know of Where2Wheel. But right now they also know they have to pay for Where2Wheel. So if we eliminate that having to pay for Where2Wheel, we feel that the market will, I don't want to say the market will come to us, but you understand.
Yeah, we get like the comments on Facebook every day. I probably get at least one. Why is this not free? So we're really trying to switch from a business to consumer. I mean, we'll have a little piece of that to business and give them what they're asking for. And we'll see how that goes.
It'll go well. Love it. So we're talking to Brittany and David Peregoff of Where2Wheel. You guys can learn about them at where2wheel.com. We'll have all the descriptions and show notes below. You guys can check that out. It's episode 87 of the 1004 show. If you guys haven't noticed yet, these two are married and own 2 businesses together. It's interesting. You guys also work from home, remotely, I guess, and you work very close to each other. How do you do it?
Yes. That's funny. When we tell people we work together, I get probably 90% of the time is, oh my God, how do you work with your husband all day? I'd kill mine, or I just strangle myself. People are like crazy with that. I don't know. It started out as a necessity and it just kind of works. Plus you're really like, our personalities kind of, I'm like more like aggressive and you're kind of just laid back.
We're a really good mesh of yin and yang.
Yeah.
So where Britt's personality is strong, mine is lacking, and where I'm, have a stronger traits, Britt's the one lacking. So we make up for each other's weaknesses and complement each other's strengths pretty well. So
it took some learning in the beginning. I move probably 10 times the speed he does, so in the beginning that took a lot of adjustment on my end, like come on. But
on the other hand of that, my quality of work is usually significantly better than Britt. So once we can get more done, I can get better work done. So we complement each other.
It took an adjustment, but the days when we're fighting are not very much fun. So, but that's not very often.
When my wife works from home or stays at home, I get zero work done. She always wants me to do something. I'm like, just because I work from home now does not mean that I am like working on the home all day. I'm just working from home. She's like, I need you to run all these errands. I'm like, I don't really care that you want me to run all these errands. And she doesn't listen to the show, so I can say whatever I want about her. Now, if she ever does start to listen, I'd be screwed.
Yeah, it took. Yeah. And I'm super organized. I'm a super organized person. So I kind of like figure out everything that needs to get done in the day, and then we discuss what, order we want to get it in, how much it's going to take, how much time. So we kind of like organize the day around both people and what everyone needs to get done. And that's a big part, because every day, I mean, when you're in a business, there's a million things you have to get done every day. So trying to prioritize and then figure out, when are you going to get the things you want to get done, and when am I going to do the things I want to do. On top of that, run Beach Spin and Where2Wheel and daily life. So that's helped.
Yeah.
Keep everything kind of straight.
I'd be lost. If I had to run either business by myself, I'd have to find somebody like Britt to keep me on task and on track and on schedule. Otherwise,
sure.
it would just, the train would fall off the tracks.
Yeah. That happens. I want to ask you guys some maybe personal questions so the viewers can understand a little bit more about you guys. What made, and you guys can answer as a group or individually, what made you cry last?
What made me cry last? You haven't cried in a long time.
Maybe, I know I did cry when I wrecked my Mustang.
Yeah.
So,
there was a point with Where2Wheel.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
About probably right before we decided to pitch at 1 Million Cups, which ended up landing Bill, where investment. We were actually facing the, I guess, pivotal point of, is this really going to be a business, or is this just going to be a hobby and we have to give this up because it's not turning into what we want? Because at that time we were funding it out of our pockets. It was, becoming a drain on our finances, and we weren't able to really take it to the next level. It needed a rebuild of its payment side, and we weren't going to be able to pay for that ourselves. We didn't, when we started Where2Wheel, we never foresaw taking on investment or this path. It never ends up the way it is. But we've been about 2 years into it at that point. And that was a really hard time for both of us to figure out. It wasn't becoming what we wanted it to be. Are we just done? How do we figure that out? How do you decide? So that's probably the last time I really cried. That was an upsetting.
Yeah, it was one of those moments where you realized, you need to either take an action that's going to make the business, or it's just going to, fall to the wayside because it's not performing.
Right. And
it's not worth the time and energy that you're putting into it.
And is it not performing because it's never going to perform, and this action you're taking isn't the right one to take? It's really stressful, I think, was more. And, you always have big hopes and dreams for every business. So that probably was the last time I really cried.
Yeah, Britt stresses out about that stuff more than I do.
I stress, and he doesn't at all. So I'm like over here like, oh my God. He's like, you need to calm down.
How do you know, though? How do you know? Because I think we've all been there, right? How do you know when it's time to throw in the towel? It is very hard, and whether it's something that you've invested a lot of time or money in, or it's a relationship. I mean, this thing happens to everyone throughout time. It might be a business, it might be a relationship, it might be a family member. It could be so many different things. And so how do you know, though, that, like, how did you come to that conclusion that, okay, if we do this thing, it could keep going well, or maybe this is just time to give up?
That's very difficult, and obviously it's going to be different for everybody. It took a lot of sitting down, and I think some of the key pieces for us were, we were still getting a lot of people were still signing up, but at the time our payment system wasn't working, and we were going to have to rebuild the whole website to actually bring in money. So it was, people were signing up, not the rate we wanted them to, but they were still signing up. The Facebook audience was still growing and paying attention to stuff we were presenting. I think the one thing you really have to think about is we brought the issue up, and then we left it for an entire day, and we basically said, neither one of us are allowed to talk about this. We're not going to think about this. We're just going to sit on it. And that's really hard when you're in business, because obviously you want to do things, you want to fix it. And I think that helped us kind of calm down, at least me, and really look at, what is it going to look like if we close this down, and what is it going to look like if we go forward, and are we ready to go forward? How is that going to play out? And I think it really comes down to what do you have left? Like, do you still really want to work on this? And do you really feel like there's still something left to give here? Or even though it's hard and you really thought it was going to be successful, there's just really, nothing there. And both of us, we came back the next day and really were like, well, neither one of us feel like it's done. So we were just like, let's build an investment package and we'll present it 1 million cups and we'll see what happens. And I think we said we'd give it like 2 months. And if nothing kind of started showing up, then we would look at what it would look like kind of winding it down. And that's kind of how we took it.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure there's a black and white answer of
it's tough.
Exactly when you should throw in the towel. My mindset is that as long as there's still resources in the bank or energy in your heart, run it into the ground.
Yeah, that's yours.
No, I think you guys actually answered it very, very well. First thing is you need to address that there's something that you're not where you want it to be, right? Then, sit back, reflect on it, figure out why it's not happening. I think oftentimes it's people, and I don't think in your case this is it, but I think oftentimes it's people being lazy, or they're not really giving it their all, and there's something that they know that they could be doing instead, or they're not doing what they're best at. And then 3, like really figuring out, like, do you still have it? Is there something here that people want? And so I think with me and my business, we've had this recycle many times, and even recently, where it's like, what do I love doing? What do I think we're doing? What do I think this business is best at? And I realized that, hey, we weren't doing this. We were always having a hard time of positioning Hatch as a place where, because there was a physical place and I didn't want it to be a physical place, right? And so people always were like, oh, it's a co-working space. Oh, it's this, it's something else. I'm like, actually, that's not even like the questions that we constantly answer. And so, actually, just recently, I was like, we need to be positioning ourselves as like a place where we can help people get exposure, a resource where people can help market their business. And then you realize that the word marketing is probably not, is too vague. So then you got to talk about, well, how can you get, more eyeballs on your site, and get more eyeballs on your Instagram page or whatever it is. And so more customers. And so it wasn't about, let me help you start a business. It was like, let me help you get this exposure piece. And I think, now the show is twice a week. We're going to be moving to 3 days a week. And I'm able to, kind of like what you guys said, share content of other people. This is sharing the content of your story. There's a little bit of my perspective in it, but it's able to leverage your network to help grow ours, and something that I think that I enjoy to do, and to be able to get stories out of you guys that no one has probably ever heard, right? And I think that's important.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Not many people have heard
I mean,
that
it's
one.
just it's so important to really look at things and say, what am I doing? And the last 6 months for me have been completely crazy. Some of the hardest decisions in my life to have to make. But I feel that things are moving forward. And no one would ever think and look at me and be like, oh, you're not crushing it. I'm like, crushing it and enjoying it and making sure that you're making the impact that you want are two very different things. And so it's not like I wasn't happy going to work every day, but I wanted to be making a bigger impact, and we weren't doing the steps to get closer to that. And I think that those are the things that you have to do if you want to be seen by more people, if you want to make a bigger impact, if you and if you notice, like, this has nothing to do with money, because the money will kind of trickle itself in there if you have a big enough community. I mean, it's just, it's interesting how that happens.
Yeah. And I think two things, like, we weren't prepared for when we started the first company that helped with the decision was, it takes a lot more time than you really think it's going to take. Like, everyone looks at Facebook and like, oh, that's what's going to happen. And we were the same way. And you have to judge, like, how much time your business is actually going to take to get traction, along with it's not going to end up the same way you want it to end up. Like, you have to be able to get out of your box and figure out, are we going to close this down? Or are we going to pivot? And are we okay with pivoting to something that we didn't want to be in the first place? We never were expecting to be free. That was a big pivot for us.
It's difficult to...
Those are pieces that you just got to kind of understand. It's
difficult to say that you are similar to a Facebook, though, right? Because they have basically unlimited everything, right? Whatever they want, they have it. Yeah. And I think it's really difficult for businesses and groups to be like, oh, we can be this. It's like, unless you have unlimited resources, you cannot say that you're something. There's a part in my book where I'm like, you're not Amazon, you're not Facebook. You cannot think that you can become this 2 billion juggernaut. And there's 2 billion people on Facebook now. You will never, Where2Wheel will never be that. Number one, because there's not even that many Jeep owners, right? But like, you have to set realistic expectations. And
Yeah.
I think people that, think about creating, and then it's not as much as it used to be. Think about creating the next Facebook or something like that. It's like, is this business even potentially that type of business? And most of the time it's not. Facebook is not a niche, right? Where2Wheel is a niche.
No.
And so it's
global.
Yeah. And you have to remember, like, Amazon was started 20 years ago. I mean, that's a 20-year business. It's not overnight, and people, I think we see a lot of businesses do that. In a year we're going to have 200,000 users. I'm like, okay, well, how are you going to do that? You just have to understand there's a time factor here. And I think a lot of people get discouraged really quickly when they don't meet huge
Right. Grant Cardone sums it up with it's going to take 10 times the amount of time, 10 times the amount of resources, and 10 times the amount of energy that you expect.
Than you think it's going
that
to.
Guy's, I just learned about that guy recently. And somehow, I guess, an ad or a video popped up, and he's got his team selling in, I guess, their office. And the guy is struggling to make the sale. And then Grant gets on the phone and basically lands like a $30,000 contract. I don't know if it's real or fake, whatever, but it was incredible. I was like, man, this guy is ridiculous.
He is a salesman.
Yeah, his book, the 10X Rule.
10X Rule is what I'm reading right now.
Yeah, it's pretty good. He's got an interesting take. He's like more like down to earth. Like, it took him a while to build things up, and that's basically, he's like, overnight success isn't overnight success. So
yeah,
it's a good one.
It's never an overnight success. It doesn't take one night. It takes a lot of time. I think year 3 is where businesses will start to see some sort of interesting growth. And then another kind of thought that I usually have is I think it's easy to get to the top. I think it's very difficult to stay on the top. And people don't think about that too often.
And it's
about a career, right?
Yeah. Ask MySpace about that one.
I mean, think about it. Like, who are when people talk about GOAT or like greatest of all time, it's someone who has an amazing career, and that's the stat that I think is really important for people in businesses. Is how can I be the greatest of this thing? Not for a year. I don't need to win the MVP once. I want to be the greatest at this thing forever. And I think you have to have a long-term kind of thought process if that's what you're trying to do. What's something on your bucket list?
It's harder to be number one.
Go ahead.
You go first.
For me, the offshore powerboat racing.
I hate this one.
What is that?
I hate this one. It's so dangerous. God.
You can YouTube it. It's these
you
like
get this crazy
50-foot long
boat
boats
and
with
try to kill yourself. 2,000
horsepower, and they're doing 150 miles an hour over open water.
They just like the boat just tears apart. Like every time I see it, like only one boat is like still together. This is like his number one thing on his bucket list, and to go to space. And I'm like, I don't like either one of them. Why can't I just be like, I want to go to like France or something?
So is that yours then? You want to go to France?
No. I don't know. What's number one on my bucket list? Probably short term is we had family help get our businesses off the ground, the first one, and we're working on paying that back. That's probably my short term bucket list. Long term, I want to build a business empire. So that's on my bucket list.
Yeah, one of Britt's major concerns is how do you, if you do build a business empire, how do you set it up for the to survive past yourself?
Yeah. And I've seen a few companies do it well. Like most people who know us, I mean, we were raised through Disney. We got married at Disney, and they are really good at staying on top. We've seen from inside they're starting to kind of, hopefully they'll right themselves. But they're one of the few companies that through change of hands has done pretty well at keeping their brand relevant. So that's a big problem. Like how do you spend your whole life building this legacy, and then you hope that the people come behind you don't mess it up. So that's like, how do you ensure those And, I mean, it's obviously, through culture but I mean, look at Lehman Brothers. I
Or
mean,
Walmart.
two people, yeah, Walmart, one person can mess it
You
up.
did you say you met at Disney and got married at Disney?
Yeah, so both of our parents are Disney Vacation Club owners, so we've both been going to Disney our whole lives, like since we were 10. We actually met on a Disney Christmas cruise in 2004. And I was living in Iowa, and he was living here, and we did long distance through high school,
Yeah.
and then we went to college together, and then we got engaged. We actually got out of college, started a company, a year later got engaged, and we got married at Disney in June of 2013.
That is
Yep.
a
So
fairy tale
we're
of a
like
story.
Disney fans, if you can't tell.
Are you featured
I
on
know.
Disney's website?
We still
Yeah.
haven't sold the rights to the story.
No, my mom was like, I'm gonna write them this article, and I was like, what's the purpose, Mom? She's like, you might get free tickets. I was like, okay, like if you want to write it, go ahead.
Or Disney features you and tags Where2Wheel in it.
Yeah, my mom's
Yeah.
like, maybe they can make a movie about you. I'm like, it's not. I mean, it's cute, but it's not that exciting, Mom. And she's like, I was like, when you retire and you want to write a movie script, go for it.
Yeah,
that's funny.
So, but
What's
yeah.
something that you thought I would ask you that I haven't?
He thought he would ask that he hasn't. How happy are you with your companies?
Yeah, it's always a good question.
Yeah, I get asked that a lot. Or satisfied, I guess.
So
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the generic questions: how many hours do you work a week, or
You don't want me to answer that one.
so how are you satisfied? Are you happy with the business?
Yeah, they both done well.
Vending, I'm over it at that. I'm ready for, like you said, something with more impact, something a little more challenging. Vending's pretty much, a set and forget business rather than refilling up the machines. There's not a lot of issues that you have to think through with vending. So it's like it's a level one business. It's a good foundation, but
It
if you
taught
really-
us a lot.
yeah, but if you really
We're
want
lucky.
to challenge yourself, it's not the business for that.
Yeah, it does really well. You can kind of set on autopilot. But I'm kind of like Impact. We have a lot bigger aspirations. I mean, if you've ever heard Dave's crazy ideas, you can probably tell. So for us, we're at that point, we're ready to move on, to the next phase of how do you go from here up to the next level. I'm not happy with it, but we're ready to kind of change
Yeah.
it up a little bit. We've been doing that for about 5-6. It's been open for 6 years. We've
yeah.
been running it full time for about 5.5.
And where
5.
do I look at with a lot of excitement for the future growth that we can unlock with Where to Wheel? I think there's a lot of overlooked business channels within that market.
Yeah, and I definitely think if you're going to run two companies, we were lucky that we had a lot of excitement and passion for Where2Wheel, because when you run your own company, so with vending, we're the only people. So we have to go stock it every day, and it pays income. So, at the end of the day, when you get done working a 10-hour workday with vending, and then you have to go work on Where2Wheel, you really need that excitement piece, or you're just not going to do it.
Right.
So it wasn't as difficult for us to, put in the 15, sometimes 16-hour work days, because the second piece was, the new thing. But yeah.
And I see them all as stepping stones to
Yeah, how you
eventually
go.
I want to get into aerospace.
Yeah.
But unless you're left with a ton of family money, that's an impossible task. So you have to, vending's our foundational business, and then from there we can shift things into Where2Wheel, which has 7 or 8 figure potential, and then from there you can actually move towards, something that's going
Off-road part.
yeah, a 9 or 10
That's
figure
really
business.
important. Those stepping stones. Everything is a stepping stone to get to that next thing. And if you didn't do these other things, you wouldn't be able to get to that next piece. And I think that's often missed. I like to end with what's something about you that most people don't know, but I feel like that's the Disney story. So it's not that. But we'll end with this, where knowing that you guys are going on to that next that next phase of growth, how do you leverage what you've learned over the better part of the last decade to make sure that you don't make those same mistakes again?
That's just
Paying attention.
And I think the mistakes cause pain, and pain is
You want to avoid.
burns itself into your memory pretty hard. So
Yeah.
I don't see us making too many mistakes, like spending an enormous budget on a
Right.
marketing medium that has been untested, or we've made the mistakes before. If we make them twice, that's just a reflection of us as poor business owners. So.
And we've had a lot of different, a lot of people know we were talking at the state of Virginia Beach for Owls Creek, and that got really far into it, and that kind of never materialized. And one thing we do is we always sit down and we're like, okay, well, we have this other business. If this comes through, what is this going to look like for us? How are we going to incorporate this aspect and the vending and this and keep our income, and how are we going to do all these pieces? And it takes a lot of time, and it's very stressful until you figure out a plan. But then for us moving forward, we kind of had to have a guideline of what it kind of needs to look like for us, and that helps. It's not like you're not going to make mistakes, because with anything, as you step into new territory, mistakes are going to happen. But we've used a lot of the lessons from the past. With Where2Wheel, we didn't have a plan. It was just throw it up, and we're going to make money. In a year, we're not going to have to do vending anymore. And that obviously didn't happen, and that was a big pitfall for us. So to avoid that, we make sure we know, what's this going to look like, what's it not going to look like. Do we want to go into this? How is this going to look if we go into this? I think really taking the time to look at the opportunity, and it's okay to say no, like really sit down and look at it. Is this something you want to do? How is it going to work? Is it going to work for you? And how is it going to work for you? Helps you kind of keep you in line from jumping into things and making mistakes that you've already made. Because when you sit down and think about it, you're like, well, I did that with that. I'm not going to do that again. So that's a big piece. I guess that would be me, the planning. I'm a planner. So I'm always like, okay, well, how's this going to look? But I think that kind of helps laser focus everything a little bit.
Right.
So, and then like Dave said, pain, you just don't want to do it again. You don't want to be crying because it wasn't what it was.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that, those stepping stones, where you make the mistakes at a small level. So then when you are operating at a large level and those mistakes could cost you your company, you've already learned them when the price was small. So now you know not to make that mistake.
Yeah.